Hey guys and girls, how you going? Mark Hummer here. We're doing a video here on all sorts of gadgets and camera gear, as I do. We're going to do it's a lighting test initially, and then of course straight after that I'll be talking a little bit about cameras and lighting. So what am I doing today? Well, really I'm just running you through this setup that I have so you know where I'm at. So initially what we've got here is I've got the Z6 mirrorless camera from Nikon, and we're filming at 4K at 25 frames per second. And the reason I'm using 25 frames a second is we have a PAL format in Australia, so that's 25 and 50 is most appropriate. Whereas in America, I know you use 30 and 60. That's fine. But here, the 25 is appropriate. And of course, in league with that, I'm using 50th of a second shutter speed. Now, the ISO I'm using is native ISO. There's a reason for that. I could pump up the ISO on this camera to, I don't know, 6400 with no issue at all in video loss, but my principle is that I'm trying to get it down to its native ISO because that's the best picture quality, and I want to get in the mindset practice of achieving just that. So that gives me much more scope in editing, and it's not already artificially brightened or interfered with, and it should give me some interesting dynamic range to work with. So I'm trying to get everything right in camera. The look should be pretty much 100% anyway. I have noticed with previous editing I've done in a Portrait Pro with Adobe that it ends up with almost no editing required. Maybe a little bit of a boost in color, perhaps a little bit more sharpness if I can get away with it, but really it's not necessary. I could just load them up on YouTube straight out of camera, and that's really the goal that every photographer should have. So what is my lighting setup? Well, the lighting setup consists of 4 672 aperture Aramans LED panels with a total of 4 of them. I mean, that's about 2,500 LEDs pointing at me. They're coming from exactly this direction, so it's a side lighting on this side of the face to give a bit of directionality, a little bit of shadow. And right in front of me I have a dual LED light. It's 2 ring lights inside each other, so you got a big 19-inch LED as the outside light of 480 LEDs, and then internally inside that light is another ring light, and that is 300 LEDs, so there's 780 in total there. So it's less than a third here, pretty much a quarter, but it's at full strength coming straight at me to create some sort of a fill and directional light here. And then of course I have the 4 panels over here for side lighting. Now combined all up, it's 3,300 LEDs. That's a lot of lighting, but you need that when you're shooting at f4, which I am, and at 100 ISO. So why am I shooting at f4? Why not f2 or something like that? After all, I am using a 50mm prime 1.8G lens with the FTZ adapter. Well, the reason I'm shooting at f4 is because very soon I'm acquiring the zoom lens, the 24-70 f4, and the reason I'm going for that one is because it's a perfect little versatile video lens. So it'll be suitable for these type of videos here, but also for anything on a tripod where I just want to be able to expand or contract, zoom in, zoom out a little bit without losing the subject in a prime. Because with a prime, of course, you're on a tripod, you've got a prime, you've got a fixed focal length. If they tend to come a little bit too close or go a little bit far or a bit wide out of shot, well, other than panning around, you can't really do much about the shot composure. So with a bit of a zoom option, I can set up to around the 45mm mark as my standard, and then if I need to come in a bit I can, if I need to go backwards a little bit I can, and it doesn't interfere with my setup. I'm not able to move the tripod or change the lens, so that just makes it very easy and convenient. I'm not worried about the f4 at all. I have plenty of primes. If I want to go shallow I can, but really with video anyway, which is the context of what I'm talking about, with video is generally good to have a little bit of versatility with the depth of field. You don't want to be shooting at f1.8. You're going to lose the subject a lot of the time. So at f4 it gives me a discipline that at least I will have a good chance of retaining focus. So that's a good starting point. So when it comes to photos, of course, that's a different kettle of fish. As you can see on my little table here, this is a little medical table I use because it's really actually pretty cool. My wife was, sorry to say, she was sick for a little while and bedridden, so I bought this medical style table, like a hospital bed has, because it's fully height adjustable and light and rollers, and you can move it around the room. And it was great for her when she was bedridden for a little while with a minor injury. But for me now, I use it predominantly just as a versatile little workspace table where I can do my tinkering, and because it's height adjustable and able to tilt in its angle as well as height, what I can do is I can raise or lower the items I'm working on, so it's a comfortable standing height or sitting height. So at the moment I'm using this as a little table for my videos. Now on this table, of course, I've got my microphone. It's a Nikon ME1 microphone, and I bought a Nikon one because I knew it would be compatible and of high quality. What I've also got here is I've got a little crop sensor camera. Again, it's a Nikon. It's a D7100, 24 megapixels. It's actually a brilliant camera. It's one of the first Nikons I bought, and it sold me on the brand as soon as I got it. On that one at the moment, it happens to have a little zoom, a wide angle zoom of 17 to 35, 2.8. Now that's an excellent lens. It's a D lens. It weighs half a ton, but it's a beautiful quality pro lens. And on this camera, with its equivalent focal length being a crop sensor, it's sort of very similar to, say, a 26 to 52, which is actually really handy. On the other end of the scale here, I have this D810. The D810's at the moment wearing a 85mm 1.8G. Excellent prime lens for portraits. So I love this camera and lens. It's 36 megapixels, so it's very high quality, and if I'm doing portrait work or I need a landscape or a lot of detail, then that's the one I'm going to turn to. But as a backup camera, this little one here is also quite excellent. And with the Z6 now, of course, I've got everything covered. This one's pretty much for video predominantly. It's a backup photo camera, but these two are predominantly my photo cameras where I have most of my primes available. This is an interesting prime here. I've had this for some time now. It's a 180mm Nikon 180mm f2.8 D lens, and this is actually just fabulous for portraits. The shallow depth of field you get from that, you might think 2.8, what's special about that? But being a low element count prime lens and that long focal length of 180, it just milks out the background beautifully. And you find you get the whole subject in focus, but everything that is away from that subject is just blurred out to oblivion. So it's a fabulous portrait lens. You just got to get back a little bit to use it. And I don't have any problem with that because with all my flashes, and here is an example of my speed lights. This one here is an SB900. I have 3 of these, and I also have 3 SB910s as well. So 6 in total. And what they do for me is I can surround the subject with light, and being that I have these radio radio triggers, of course they'll activate from anywhere of 100 meters away. So it doesn't matter how far I have to get back, I know it's always the flash is going to activate at any given time. So I recommend very highly to people that like the LED lights I was illustrating with this video, buy lighting. Don't rely on the ISO if you don't have to. ISO is just degrading the image to some point, whether it be slight or greatly. If you can use lighting, use it because it gives you subject isolation. You get control, you get angles and shadows, and you can really make it a beautiful image and very, very sharp and a very punchy image. With speed lights, for example, with photography, it's an absolute essential item to have, at least 1 or 2. I have 6, as I say. I don't always bring 6 with me. Most of the time I probably bring 4 or 5. But the reason being is I use a couple in a softbox, make sure I've got plenty of power forward on. I use maybe a 4-foot octo box, and then behind them I'll use 2 of the speed lights with gels, and I'll give some color effects from behind. Now you wouldn't believe how great that is in punching out the subject and making them pop, because you've got lighting forward, you've got lighting behind them, the subject is really surrounded with light and they become the center of attention. And of course you're going to blur out the background with your prime lens, but the point is the background now becomes a little softer and darker because the subject is so bright it looks beautiful. So again, I'm encouraging people to invest in lighting. Although this camera can do incredible ISO activity, I'm not going to tend to use it for that very much unless I'm in a pinch and it's an emergency. So that's really all I've got to review today for this brief video. I was just checking out how the lighting was working and how this room is looking now. I'm hoping that the background is sufficiently soft that it's not distracting and yet still attractive. I'm going with a Japanese theme, as you can see. I went to Japan in 2009, pretty much inspired me to decorate this room fully in that theme. I built those rice paper walls myself using imported rice paper from Kyoto, and then I built the frames with Tasmanian oak. It was a fun weekend project. So as I've bought some trinkets and bits and pieces through the years, they're decorating the room and I hope you find them interesting. I like the fact that there's a bit of colour and contrast and shapes and lines. I think it makes it a bit interesting to look at rather than just a blank wall. I hope you agree.